Hello, everyone. It's your boy Adrian here. In whatever way you can, let's make sure that we're supporting US ARC. They're fighting to keep our reptile keeping rights. It's getting really crazy out here with all the laws passing and white lists being approved. Make sure that you're becoming a US ARC member if you can. And if not, support US ARC awareness on your platforms. Thank you. And we're stronger together, guys. West Coast, man, you know where it's at. Best place to relax and kick back. Underneath the palm trees, talk about reptiles and spit facts. From BP to GTP, emeralds to Ackies, the city by the sea where we rock the crease khakis. I don't need no AI intro because I've been at the style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. Reptiles. About reptiles. Style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. What up? What up? What it do, YouTube? It's your big homie Adrian right here, reporting live from the West Coast. You know where it's at. West Coast Wednesdays, every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. We got episode 14, another green tree python banger right here. And remember, guys, I am not an expert in any way. I am definitely new to snake keeping. I've been into snake keeping for about 3 years or so, maybe a little more. Barely in green tree pythons for maybe a year. Full transparency, you know. And as far as production goes, I've only successfully produced one clutch of ball pythons under my belt so far. And fully transparent with you guys, man. So I'm just here to shoot the shit, you know, talk about what experiences I've seen keeping and trying to breed chondros. Almost had a clutch, as you guys know, who have been following me. Fortunately, didn't, and I've talked about that and my experience with that in the past. And I'm going to keep trying, it gave me motivation and inspiration to keep trying and keep working on it, man, because that's a species I'm really passionate about. I used to keep chameleons in the past. I successfully bred chameleons, panther chameleons in the past. So I really liked arboreal species. I had a nice setup in my living room with a tree enclosure with a chameleon, and was really into more of the lizard and frog side of things. And that's what led me when I got into ball pythons first. Is what led me to through Trap Talk. Big shout out to MJ, the big homie, killing it over there. Is what inspired me with the green tree pythons. Didn't really know much about them at all, and when I saw that there were some arboreal snakes that were friendly to the hobby and accessible, really, lit a fire for me, and I knew what I wanted to work to in the future, and that dream finally came true recently, maybe about a year ago. I started picking up a collection, and it was good. I started with ball pythons first, and kind of learning, like, how to build a collection, and I applied those experiences that I learned with building a collection and ball pythons to try to build a collection in green tree pythons. But you know, there's not one way. I just used what method I thought worked best, and I went with that. You know, and so next month, many of you may not know this. I jumped back into the YouTube scene recently, but I've been on YouTube for next month will be the 15-year mark since I've made my first reptile related YouTube video. So I've been uploading videos for YouTube reptile related 15 years on and off, whether it be setup videos, how-to videos, enclosure setup videos, update videos, Reptile Super Show walkthrough videos. Even from back then, I have some footage of Reptile Super Show walkthrough from all those years ago, and you could see the price differences now, what the animals were looking like back then. So I've, been on YouTube for 15 years. This is nothing new to me. I didn't just jump in here, start a podcast, whatever. And this podcast was developed from me wanting to have conversations and learn more from people, and I might as well do it on a YouTube live so we could all learn together. This podcast has no agenda. I don't make any money on this. I spend my time for all of you guys and myself so we can learn, and all the guest time. I don't have a Patreon. I do this solely for the passion of the reptiles. There's no agenda at all, and that's why I'm here. So, like I said, from a new keeper's perspective, with full transparency, if you can learn anything from my experiences, that's all that matters to me. Or, whether you're new coming into this, or maybe some old heads will learn too. And be sure to share this content. Please hit the like button and subscribe. And, I know I'm not an OG breeder, but there's not really a lot of OG breeders doing podcasts on green tree pythons. Like, there are some, that are on here and there, but there's not really, some people may have them on the show here and there, but there's not really a lot of like experienced green tree python breeders on podcasts on YouTube. Definitely on Trap, he has his panel and board stuff, and salute to the All in the Tree boys. But it's hard to get. You'll get little tidbits of information here and there. When you're just a guest on the show or something, you might not remember to say the whole story, something like that. So this is where I'm trying to just out, start to finish, and try to lay it all out. And appreciate anyone who taps in. So pretty much, yeah, man. If, like I said, if you're new or old coming into this, I come into this from a new keeper's perspective. Trying new things, and making little tweaks here and there when I see that they could be made. But just trying to definitely get a routine down and stick to that, and just bring up thoughts that might not be talked about a lot. I'll have guests on the show. It'll be their first time, such as Jared tonight, Sartorial Arboreals. I think this may be his first show, and it definitely won't be his last, man. I can already tell he's a really cool dude, and happy to have him on the show and appreciative of him. And, there'll be guests I'll bring on the show, and they'll go on to do more shows, and it's great to see that. And I'll bring up some topics on the show, and they'll be brought up on other shows. And it's great to see that as well. As long as this stuff's getting talked about, that's all that matters. So I definitely know people are listening, people are paying attention. I may not have the crowd following of a lot of people, but the people that do listen, I know they're diehard fans, and not fans, but just hobbyists, businessmen, what they may be. And yeah, so it's cool to see that stuff. And yeah, man, appreciate anyone who even listens to this, or you know pays any attention to it. I appreciate it. I put a lot of time and effort into the animals, and learning about the animals, talking about the animals, and every day, man. There's not a day that goes by where something doesn't need to get done, or people I don't reach out to, and all that. Yeah, man. So that's just a little background over here. Some updates. I got the enclosures that I built. If any of you've been following me, know I built some badass 3 from scratch, 1/4 inch PVC. I put a little how-to quick reel on my Instagram. You could check that out. And yeah, so I moved a lot of animals into those bigger enclosures. So I'm trying to get them established in there and go from there. And everyone's doing good. They're doing good. Nice enclosures. Really happy with them. And yeah, everyone's just settling in, getting all cozy. Got the ball python clutch. I've only had 2 out of 6 hatchlings to eat so far. Some are on their second and third meal. The other ones just don't seem interested in eating. One's a runner. And yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, even ball pythons, to get those established seems tough. So I could only imagine what green tree pythons would be like. But who knows until you get there, man. You never know until you cross that bridge. You can listen to as many podcasts as you want and try to learn as much as you want. Say, oh, that'll never happen to me because I'll do everything to prevent it. But, you know, like you see myself right here, it happened to me. So it might happen. It's just a part of breeding. It's just a part of it. So it seems like a lot of downs. And once you get those ups, I know they'll be worth it. Any little up you get, that's that's what keeps me going, man. There's always something positive to look into. So now that I got all that out of the way, let's welcome our guest to the West Coast Wednesdays podcast. His name's Jared from Sartorial Arboreals. I'm gonna bring him on the stage. Hey, how's it going, Jared? Welcome to
All
the
right,
West
Adrian. How are,
Coast, man.
thank you, brother. How are
Yeah,
you?
doing great, man. Doing great. I'm doing better than I deserve, my friend. Better than I
I,
deserve.
I relate to that.
Yep, yep.
Thank you,
And
Adrian, for having me on. I'm honored, and it's I appreciate that you're doing this for
yeah,
people. I know, like you said, you're just doing it for the love of it and to get some people exposure, and I just think that's super cool, man. So thank you.
yeah, man. Absolutely. And I appreciate you, and it's an honor to have you on, man.
Thank
Honor
you.
to have you on. And, this isn't like, oh, I had Jared on first or whatever type of thing, bro. I don't even, whatever, bro. It's just two dudes having a conversation, bro.
Yeah, man.
Um, you know, I wouldn't even count my show as your first podcast. So, uh, you know, just being completely humble, bro, and happy to have you on, man.
I got a
And
lot of
so,
respect for that.
yeah. So, since you are kind of new to the scene and getting out there with the outreach, man, let's let people who watch this show get to know you a little more, man. So you're working out of the Midwest.
Yeah,
You're working.
I'm in Northwest Indiana, right across the state line from Chicago. So it's always nice because Tinley is right in my
Okay.
backyard, so I can always hit that show every year.
Oh
Um,
man.
but yeah, man, I like yourself, like a lot of people, in the hobby and the business, if you will. Kept reptiles when I was younger. Like you, I was mostly into lizards when I was younger. My parents would let me have snakes. Um, and then when I got older and out on my own, I had some snakes, but it's kind of like I said, very low level. Um, and fast forward, I'm married. I have kids. My son, he's 8 years old, and he wanted to get a pet. Um, I recommended crested geckos. He fell in love with it. I It reignited my love for doing it, and kind of like a lot of things you put aside when you become an adult. And I was like, you know what, I need to do something for me, something that's just fun, that was kind of just peaceful, good, soul cleansing thing for me. And so I've been doing the crested geckos with him, and then I was like, you know what, I want to start a green tree python colony. I've always been fascinated by them. um, it it's a species that I knew something about, but I'd never owned. And I was just like, I love the way they look. I love their behaviors. The more I read about them, the more I was like, I don't think it's as hard to keep these as everybody makes it sound. And I got my first one, and then that snowballed into where we're at now.
Yeah, for sure, man. Appreciate you guys tapping in. Big RO with the 5.0. What it do, my player? Yeah, man. So from crescent geckos to green trees, man, that's a pretty big jump. Um, You know, what did you just see them at some shows and they caught your eye
You
in a
know,
Tinley?
Agent, like as you know, I'm sure, like you don't see a lot of green trees at shows, and oftentimes, and this isn't casting any aspersions on anybody, a lot of them look kind of rough because they're often wild caught, and I learned really quickly, like there is a price point where you can usually gauge if this is captive bred or not, and I was kind of just looking for a species that I didn't know a ton about, that didn't get enormous, that didn't, as you and I've talked about, like I liked Reticks, I thought they were cool, but until I found out about like the dwarfs and super dwarfs, that was just something that was like, well, I'll never have. I'll admire them from afar. And the green trees, the size is reasonable. The care wasn't too intense. It wasn't something where it was like nobody knows how to raise these and keep them. They're not cheap, but it's not something where it's like a Bolen's python where you're like, it's a car to get two of them. So I just I was fascinated by my. I stumbled on.
Yeah, I'm back, bro. So yeah, you were telling how you're getting into the green trees and you don't see them at shows. I'm sure people probably saw you, but said what you had to hear. But um, yeah, man, if you want to continue where you left off with that.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. Handy Exotics. I saw you. Shout out. Appreciate you, brother. Um, so yeah, man, it was just something. It was a species that I was interested in, wanted to know more about. Didn't seem like the market was saturated with them, like ball pythons and something like that, where I felt like the complexity of the species was almost too much to jump into, in terms of like the morphs and the value and all those things with ball pythons. So I wanted to do the arboreals. I've always liked arboreal snakes. Um, Green trees just kind of hit that sweet spot for me. I've always liked pythons. And like I said, with the manageable size, the not needing a ridiculously large enclosure or eating really expensive food items eventually. And like I was saying, I don't know if you got to hear it before you got cut off, but I just had a feeling like the husbandry wasn't as complex as people made it out to be. They had a really bad rep temperamentally. Um, and I stumbled on Gary Shavino's videos, and that was really enlightening. Just that, like I liked when he was saying, like if people think when he's talking about urging people to get captive bred, and he said something to the effect of like, if you think I'm trying to drum up business for me and my buddies that are breeders, he's like, don't. He's like the demand far outseeds the supply. He's like, we need more breeders. And I just
Yeah,
thought that was really cool to hear somebody say, like it didn't feel like there was any kind of gatekeeping there or anything like that, or making it seem more mysterious to keep people averse to trying to do it themselves. So I kind of just jumped in with both feet, and it kind of snowballed to where it is today in the best possible way.
yeah, for sure, man. So how many animals do you have in your collection right now?
Right now, I have 25 green trees,
Wow.
and 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 three retics.
Yeah, I was not expecting that, bro. Uh, yeah, I was. Yeah, man, that's dope, bro. Man,
Thank you.
that's
It
impressive, dude.
Oh, thank you. It was kind of one of those things, and then like again, if I could urge anybody listening that's newer than even me to it, don't get as many as fast as I did. I think it's a trap a lot of people fall into. In my case, at the time, I had more money than sense, and I got lucky that I got some animals from some good breeders that took pity on me and mentored me a fair bit, and some that I still reach out and help me completely unrequested, which is awesome. And one of the things I love most about my personal experience with the green trees, just that it's been a very welcoming community. Um, I have not had a bad experience with anyone. I can't speak to anybody else's experience, but it's just been really nice. But yeah, almost all my animals are really young. I have I have two that are definitely old enough to breed, and then, three or four that I know that's the sex, but they're too young. And then the rest are really young. So it, it was kind of one of those things where, it was like you kept seeing opportunity. And as I became more interested in both the designer side of things and the locality side of things, I kind of started picking up things here or there. And, I would go through phases where I was like, I'm not really looking for anything, but if the right thing comes up, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll swing at it. And, like I said, I didn't expect, because as green trees, it's a lot more expensive usually to get older animals, established animals, especially captive bred, especially sexed, et cetera. So my whole MO was, get them young, raise them up, figure out the gender, hope you got males and females, and the more you have, obviously, the better odds you have to have both. But just a couple opportunities worked out for me. Either people, established successful breeders having older animals that they didn't see a place for in their program anymore, but that were still viable, or just people kind of either getting out of green trees, or like you and I were talking about before the show, focusing more on other things. So that side project got shelved, and they were just, they had healthy animals. There was nothing wrong with them, but they just didn't have a place for them anymore. So that's how I ended up with some of the older stuff that I have.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the younger neonate way is definitely a good way to go. Like you could get some really nice looking animals that way. You could, end up with some nice stuff. And because the older the animals get, if they start to look really nice, nobody's going to sell those.
Right.
So you could get like way luckier with buying unchanged animals. And yeah, man, it's and also the older animals, it's like, they're kind of already established into someone's way, and then you got to reestablish them into your way, which that's the thing I've dealt with a lot, like especially with captive bred, because that's the thing, like captive bred versus wild caught. The captive bred animals are just straight up like new kid off the block, bro. Like the farm bred or wild caught, they're used to like a lot of different things. So the captive bred animals are just used to like one thing. They're like really square minded. And if you don't do something in that exact same way, or it just could just be that the geographical location isn't the same and they're just kind of thrown off, as to where I've experienced like imports or Craigslist animals are just a little easier to like acclimate. They acclimate a little faster than a captive bred. Sometimes, it's not all the time, but like one experience, like I've noticed, like with a lot of different species, except for like ball pythons, mostly the arboreal species is I'll get an animal and they'll just be stuck on frozen thaw because a lot of these like green tree python breeders, they don't breed their own rodents, so they're feeding them frozen thawed rodents, and they'll be stuck on frozen thawed. They won't take anything but a frozen thawed. They've never seen a live in their life, and they've never had pre-killed, I guess, either. I don't recommend feeding live, obviously, but even a pre-killed isn't the same as a frozen thawed. There's something about the frozen thawed. It has like a certain smell, a look, uh, you know, a temperature, the way it's uh, presented to the animal for feeding. It's just all different. It's completely different. And like when you get some of these captive bred chondros that are just stuck on the frozen thawed, it's like you almost have to do a magic trick to get them to eat. They just it's kind of frustrating sometimes, bro. And it's like, I don't, myself, I don't do frozen thawed. I have frozen thawed. I have the capability of doing it, but it's like when I have my own rats that I'm breeding, it's a lot more convenient to me to just grab a rat and pre-kill it real quick and then feed it. Like, why am I gonna like grab a bunch of rats and then gas them off, and then I gotta freeze them. When it's time to feed, I gotta take them out, thaw them, get them to the right temperature, present it in the right way. It's just a lot of work, bro. It just cuts out. Like, it makes more sense when you breed your own rodents just to do like pre-killed. Um, yeah, man. So when I get, I try to switch them over as soon as possible, like to pre-killed, and especially the type of rodents that I'm breeding. A lot of people don't feed the type of rodents that I breed, and that makes a huge difference because they get stuck on rats and mice, bro. And when you try to feed them something else, they just don't want to have anything to do with it, bro. And um, yeah, man. So that's what I've been experiencing is like stuff being stuck on frozen thawed. And so I had this animal. I'll just go. Let me go on a little tangent here. I had
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
animal, and it shed out. You know, it was a freshly acquired captive bred animal, and it was deep in shed when I received it, and it had shed out. I'm gonna wait for it to shed out and then feed it. So I waited for it to shed out. Usually I don't feed them as soon as they shed out. I'll give them a day or two to just settle in after that shed
Yeah.
cycle and shed exercise. And so it shed out, and then I tried to do a pre-killed rodent, dangle it in there, because I just go straight to it. I don't like try to do whatever they were doing. I try to do it my way first and just see if they'll
Yeah.
do it. Maybe like most of the time they'll just take it my way right off the bat. But some like these animals, they're like the captive bred animals aren't like they're not like snakes, bro. They're just like captive bred animals that don't know what a snake really does, bro. Like a snake eats, how a snake eats. It's just like it's not. It's all artificial. They're just artificial, as opposed to something else that's established a different way. But what I'm noticing with these captive bred. So all right, I tried it my way, nothing. I'll give it a couple days or couple days or another week, and then try it again, nothing. And then I'm like, all right, hit the dude up, and it's like, oh, so what were you feeding it? Oh, frozen thawed, oh, okay. So I have my own frozen thawed, like I said, and I tried that, and didn't want nothing to do with it. It was like the smell was throwing it off, not the right smell of the type of rodent. All right, so I go to the PetSmart, get one of the Arctic mice, and try to give it a mouse hopper that was frozen thawed. So thaw it out, and then uh, pretty much getting it to temperature to be and the thing just disintegrated, bro. The frozen thawed feeders that you buy at the store, it's just you know they're so low quality, like, yeah, man. It just disintegrated. It smelled like shit. It looked like it was unviable meal. I'm like, I'm not gonna feed like even try to offer this thing. This thing is disgusting. Like that's when I realized like how high quality my frozen thawed feeders are compared to those. I'm like, but yeah, man, that it was a disgusting, man. That whatever I got from the shop, I know there's a lot of other, and that's why like I feel like feeding your animal like the best prey item you can is important, and like salute to people who breed their own rodents because you know what you're feeding your animal. You don't know what the hell these rodent companies are feeding them. I mean, obviously they're feeding them something similar, but how long has that rodent been dead? How long has it been sitting there in the freezer? And it's just like all these factors that are unknown. And it's like I just stick to what I got and what I know, and that's the best possible thing that I could give to my animals. And so all right, I tried everything, tried frozen thaw, still wasn't working. So at this point I'm kind of like, you know it's been quite some time that passed by. I'm like just kind of like almost giving up, maybe even thinking about assist feeding, or just trying a different prey item, see if the scent was off, even like a quail or something. And so I just tossed in. I saw the animal was in ambush mode. Finally, it's like kind of in ambush mode, ready to eat. You know, it wasn't really giving me the ambush sign, like throughout. Not sure exactly um, if I had missed that or whatever, but it was an ambush mode for sure. So I just I try to dangle the thing in there. It's not having it, so I just toss in a live hopper, see what happens. No, I left it in there for like a full 24 hours. Nothing happened with it. All right, cool. And so I, uh, you know, scratch that idea, and I wake up in the morning, check on the animal, and it's in ambush mode. 5 in the morning, it's ready to go. So before work, so I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna try it. What's, uh, what could happen? What's. Sorry, I'm losing here, but yeah. What the hell? I'm just gonna put another live in there, bro. So I grabbed like a different colored rodent. They're like multicolored and shit. So I
Yeah.
grabbed a different. Just all I grabbed was a different color rodent. Fucking tossed it in there, shut the door, went to work. Came back from work, the rodent was gone, and I could see the animal had clearly eaten the rodent.
That's awesome.
So it it took a live hopper. So it's just like maybe the timing was off. I'm not sure. Maybe the animal wasn't hungry enough, or it's just kind of getting established and acclimated. And maybe the size of the enclosure was bigger than the size of the enclosure it was in before. But it took it, man, and hopefully it'll take it going forward. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. I'm like checking for the rodent, like where is this thing?
Yeah,
It couldn't
right.
have eaten it. I'm like, it couldn't have eaten it. Like, oh my god, like it's and it was gone. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, man.
I was like, dude, I was fucking double fist pump in the air. It was
Oh
like,
yeah.
so those are the small wins, bro, that just keep you going. Just as simple as an animal eating a meal just makes you feel so good, bro. And like,
Oh,
when they go off
absolutely.
food for a little bit. Yeah,
No,
man.
man, that's the stuff that makes it
What up,
worthwhile,
big bro?
you know. Um it's really cool when you can turn that corner with an animal, where
Yeah,
you thought like, what the hell, man?
yeah.
Like
But
I've
so
tried everything.
that was the tangent like I'm going on, bro. Is like I've had a few animals like that, and now like I turn them into like an eating machine. Like I get them, and you got to do a magic trick to get them to eat. And like now it's an eating machine. You put in a live, a pre-killed, you do frozen thaw, they're taking it no matter what. Like it'll be no matter what. And that's like what I like strive to like sell to someone is something that's going to eat something like right off the bat. It's tough after shipping. It does stress the animal out. They're coming all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast and stuff like that. It's just kind of a factor. But, you know, I get these captive bred, artificially, programmed animals, and I turn them into eating machines. Um, and yeah, man, that's kind of the tangent I was going on. You get them in, and you have to do this little magic trick. That's you know, like my animals that if I ever produce and I sell, like you're not gonna have to do a magic trick, bro. Like I don't want to. I don't do magic tricks here. Obviously with establishing like neonates and stuff like that, you're gonna have to do some tricks in the tool bag. But as far as like an adult animal goes, like come on, guys, like I don't know, man. It's yeah, bro. Uh,
Well, Adrian, I think you
yeah,
touched on something important. I think it's that, you know, a lot of people, this is just my take, as a novice coming into green trees, like a lot of people have their methods,
yeah,
and because I don't know if it's because they're successful, it made them successful, etc. Like they don't like to deviate from what
yeah,
works. And I mean, like from a logical standpoint, that makes perfect sense. Like especially when you're dealing with an animal that has a reputation as a fickle eater, like green trees can, or
yeah,
like you were talking about with the emerald tree boas, things like that, animals that are known to not always take food right away, you know,
yeah,
and or just go off food seemingly randomly sometimes. And because of that, like you said, the animal has only ever experienced one thing. And I my quick tangent for me, my background before I got back into reptiles was fairly high level dog training. And I got really into the what they call the operant conditioning side of dog training, where it's basically like you positive, negative reinforcement of the training, but it's all the idea that like you make it a mentally positive experience for the dog no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
So with that transfer, that school of thought, I mean, obviously you're dealing with an animal that's a lot less mentally complex. Green tree pythons are incredibly
What up,
stupid.
long-haired Nate?
But when you simplify it for them enough that it's like, okay, this isn't my experience, but there's no other way for me to take this but to grab it. you know if you can do that for them, I personally, like I said, I'm far from an expert, but I've had a lot of success. I've only had a couple animals that have really kind of put me through the ringer for any meaningful period of time where it's like, come on, man, like you got to be starving, like you said, you're in ambush mode, you're all essed
Yeah.
up, you're waiting for it, you're caught alluring, you're doing the whole thing, like
Yeah.
meet me halfway, just grab it.
Yeah.
And I don't breed my own rodents. I have a very tolerant wife for reptiles, but she hates rodents, so I don't have
Yeah.
anything live. And so I have gone the frozen thawed route, and that's something that, to your point, like it's a mixed bag. If you have a great supplier who's very ethical and responsible, and like you said, doesn't let stuff sit frozen too long, doesn't wait too long to freeze them, feeds a really good quality diet, makes it a really appealing prey item, you know, whereas you get something like the Arctic mice and some of that other stuff where, like you said, it's just disgusting. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a snake, but like I can see why it would be gross to them. It doesn't smell appetizing. It doesn't smell even like a mouse anymore. It doesn't have those qualities that trigger that switch in their brain that's like, I need to grab that. And
Yeah.
we
Sure.
when you have that, like you said, any kind of deviation from what they understand, they balk at. They just shut down in a lot of cases. And for me, it's been a learning curve getting to the point where you get them to recognize, like, hey, these are the parameters here. Like you said, I know how it was where you're from, but it's a little different here. Like you said, it's the lighting's different, the enclosure's bigger, but you're safe. You're safe to put yourself out there and strike. Nothing's going to happen to you if you coil up on this item.
Yeah.
And like it's, I think a lot of it too is building trust with the animal.
Yeah.
you know and if you can get them to get in that relaxed mental state, in my limited experience, it seems like pretty much everything else just rolls from there, like you were
Yeah.
saying. So I
Yeah,
completely
Jared.
agree with you.
Yeah, Jared, like to your point, positive experiences I think are key. I've had some snappy imports, like an emerald tree boa that came in really snappy. And like through a bunch of positive experiences, it's not so snappy anymore. It just knows that I'm here to take care of it. I'm here to help it. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me anymore. It's just
Yeah.
like, because they come in, like, you hear people say, like they come in through the like craziest ways. The importing process is like, they're scared for their life, and they come here and you get them at a show or, online, and then they're just like, you know, so you want to soak them right away and do all your testing and quarantine and hydrate them, and then once you have some positive experiences, they just start not to be so snappy anymore. It's like I can almost take you out and just free handle you, or you do the head tap training and stuff like that. Just if you got a snappy animal, put on some hoodies and a glove and get it out of the enclosure. Once it's out of the enclosure, they seem to settle down, and just keep doing that. And then, it's all of a sudden it's not going to be so snappy. I had a female that would strike the glass every time you walk by. I got it from some dude on Craigslist, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, like she's a mean one, huh?" And I'm like not really. I like got her out free handling her. It's like she's just like scared of you, bro. Like show her that like there's nothing to be afraid of. That's why I tried with my setups to put some like palm tree leaves so they could like, they're not just like feel so exposed. You know, they have like some, okay, like I got this little leaf in front of me, so I feel a little safer. Like this guy might not see me, you know, so they might
Mm-hmm.
not strike the glass. You know, stuff like that, you know, but yeah, man, it's chondros. Chondros, bro.
Hey,
But yeah,
it's
man, so like, you know, getting back into you and your stuff you got going on there, bro. Um like have you had any breeding experience so far? Or you know what? First of all, hold on, Jared. Back up a little bit. What are your sex ratios that you know of so far, and what's adult and subadult and neonates? Like,
yeah. So I have let me get the exact number right. I have 4 confirmed. I'm sorry, 5 confirmed adult and subadult males, and I have 4 confirmed adult or subadult females. So I have 2 animals that I know are full maturity breeding age, one male, one female, and the other ones are all a little young for uh, to really try. So I haven't done any attempted breedings yet. I've had one female that I think I've watched, and again, like this is my novice showing, but like I think I've watched go through the early follicle building process and stuff like that. But I didn't introduce any males. The males are cruising at night, so that's kind of one of my canaries in the coal mine, so to speak. That like something's going on with one of them.
yeah,
Like they can smell it, they can tell way before I can. And the oldest male that I have, when I got him, the breeder I got him from, actually Steven Cosmic Chondros, he told me, he's like, hey, this guy, he always knows when a female's in season, so to speak. And it's been true. Like anytime he goes off his food a little bit and starts moving around, something's going on with one of the females. And like I said, there's a couple subadult females that I think are creeping up on age and size wise to being where they would actually be viable. Obviously my instinct is to let them go longer, just because I don't want to be over eager and create, a situation where the female isn't fully equipped to pass eggs successfully, and all those things. And I my policy has just kind of been like, you know, I got into it really fast. Now I need to slow down,
yeah,
and I need to, obviously it would be super amazing to get a clutch. And
yeah,
when I have more animals that I know are of age, I think I'll feel a little more comfortable playing around with it. But coincidentally,
yeah,
my one mature female is the only animal I have that I'm a little nervous around. She's a long-term import Biak, and she's the only animal that strikes at me regularly. Everything else,
yeah,
I've been really really fortunate, either through the skillfulness of the person I got the animal from to acclimate them and desensitize them, or just good luck and good energy on my part handling them. But you know I don't really get struck at much. I
yeah,
don't really have any animals that are very defensive other than her. So she's definitely an animal that gives me pause, unlike any of the other ones I have.
yeah,
And you hear so many horror stories about how nasty green trees are and how bad their bites are and stuff. And I think there was a time, like when you talk to some of the guys older than us that were in it, like back in the day, when all you got were wild caught Biaks that were super stressed and just miserable animals. Like they had, like you said, they went through hell to get here. Yeah, you probably got bit a lot, and those were definitely very defensive animals. But like today, we understand more about their husbandry, like you said. I mean, I don't know if you can see in my stuff, but like I've got the leaf, structure
yeah,
hung down too. It puts them at ease. It creates a very different
yeah,
atmosphere. And if you do the tap training, with the hook training, or you're, just even like a thick glove, where you just make them understand, like, okay, it's not food time. There's
yep,
nothing coming in here for you to eat. Like you said,
yeah,
lets you with the removable perches. That's a game changer.
yeah,
Like you're not trying to yank it off a perch and
yeah,
potentially damaging that fragile tail. Like there's
yeah,
so many things that like the guys between you and me in the keeping of it, like we owe them a lot, because they figured out a lot of this stuff that has made it a lot more palatable for like you and me coming in to be like, this isn't so bad. You know, like, yeah, there's
Yeah.
still some things we get hung up on and have issues with, but some of the other stuff that made it like, oh God, like, yeah, we got to get them, you know, like
Yeah.
we don't really deal with that as much. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like when you just try to break that barrier and work with the animal, it makes you as a keeper feel more comfortable too. Because then when you get them out with the gloves and the hoodie on, and you get them out, and you're like, man, this thing's not even trying to bite me. You know, why do I need this gloves and hoodie on? You know, so it's like, it's kind of like a false sense of security type of thing, or just maybe the fear, like there's been a lot of memes. Shout out to the meme king, Coach Rice. He's been killing it with the memes recently. He's on his new the sword and shield with the chondro going up to
Yes.
battle.
Yes.
And that's I mean, I pretty much, I totally agree with that. And your animals at the end of the day, bro. But yeah, I had a snappy female too. She was my mature female. And when I paired up the male, I was definitely like nervous, because you hear kind of horror stories about animals attacking each other when you introduce them. But I was surprised. She opened him with welcome arms. She welcomed him with open arms, and didn't strike at him once or anything. So I was like, all right, it's pretty interesting. When you pair them up and you think something might go down, and they just like they're like, oh hey, what's up? Another green tree.
Yeah.
Like, how's it going? So yeah, it's pretty cool, man. What a cool species to work with, bro.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's a credit to you, Adrian, that she felt relaxed enough that you put another, green tree in with her and she wasn't immediately like, defensive and territorial and displacing onto that other snake,
Yeah.
and I think it's definitely, like I said, my with my background in dog training, one of the things I learned, and like I said, it's not apples to apples, but like the dog picks up on your energy, like especially like I worked with like protection style dogs doing like bite work and stuff like that. And those are dogs that like look for suspicious people because they're guard
Yeah.
dogs,
Yeah.
and if you're acting weird, they're going to be on you, which is going to make you act weirder and more fearful, which is going to make them be more on you. Snakes, it's kind of the same, where it's like, if I'm nervous, that snake is picking up on that nervousness,
Yeah.
and they're, essing up, getting ready to strike because it's like you're throwing an uneasy vibe. But, one of the best pieces of advice somebody gave me years ago was just be a big friendly tree. And if you make them feel stable, like you're not going to drop them or grab them, they're just, gliding through your hands or up your arm. And, if they get by your face, don't be nervous. Just act like nothing's happening. And it's been pretty miraculous for me how the snakes relax. Like you feel it like in their muscles, like their bodies just get calm, and then they're just inquisitive, and that's the stuff that I enjoy so much, because you hear so many people like, don't handle them, you'll break them. And it's very true when they're little, like that part I completely, don't, anybody listening who is going to take advice from me, don't handle them when they're really little. But like once it gets some size on it, it gets some mass, they're very handleable for the most part. I mean, obviously there's always that snake that's going to just try and tag you, but
Yeah.
it's like fun. I said, yeah, it's very just I don't want to be cliche and say it's very spiritual, but it's like a very soothing thing. They're just really cool animals, and they like you said, once they do start to trust you, you get a very different, no pun intended, handle on them, because like I have a couple of them where it's like I don't even have to tap them anymore. I can just reach in and grab them, and they're super cool, and it's you kind of have that like I'm good at this moment, and it's gratifying, like you said, with the feeding, where when you get them past the threshold that you thought you couldn't get them past, and then it's just a completely different experience with them.
Yeah, it's everyone's got that one snappy Biak, but for the most part they're super chill. That's pretty much the only one. Like, I got a snappy Biak right now. She I haven't worked with her. I'm not like looking to work with them really for handleability. I try to fuck with them as little as possible. because I'm just, I want the animal to be as comfortable as possible, bro. Like I'm just giving the animals the most comfiest space, and then that way maybe I'll have some success in the future. That's I'm not looking to handle them, like that's not my goal. But when you got to do spot clean, whatever deep cleanings and all that's good to have. But when you do handle them, bro, like I'll hold ball pythons and a few other species, but when you handle a green tree, bro, it's just like something so different about them. Like I'm like, man, I'm like holding this green tree right now, like it's like a higher level, bro, of handling. Like, there's handling an emerald, and that's really cool too. But like handling a green tree, bro, I don't know if it's just because I'm like really passionate about the species, but they're like the way they feel, the texture of them, they're like so soft and gentle, and it's really graceful, man. Really graceful.
That's, I mean, you said it beautifully, Adrian. Like they're living art,
Yeah.
and even if you have a basic, non-designer, non-exceptional locality green tree, it's still a stunningly beautiful animal.
Yeah.
And it, like you said, the way that they're built, the feel, the scales, the whole thing, the way they move, the way it's just very mesmerizing. And like you said, there is something about handling them where you're just like, man, this is cool. You feel special.
Yeah. It's not like handling any other snake, bro. Like it's they don't really compare, man. It's crazy. But like I said, I try not to do it too. Unfortunately, like I wish I did it more. But when you get them out, because they do need some exercise too, bro. Like they can't just sit on the perch all the time. You got to get them out, get them moving, man. Like I think that's a key too, bro. They need to get out and get moving.
Adrian, if I can piggyback on that, I totally agree with you. Like you shouldn't just handle them like excessively because they're not built for it. But I've noticed, and this, like I said, just my experience. I can't ascribe this as a general rule for anybody else. When I get them out and handle them, it's almost like clockwork. If it's an animal that hasn't eaten, they'll usually eat within the next couple days. And if it's an animal that hasn't, defecated in a while, it'll usually defecate within the next 24 hours. And I don't know if that's just because, like you said, they got to fully stretch out, they got to use some muscles, move around, get their metabolism going a little more. But I definitely think there is a place, even in an animal like the green tree, where people typically are like, it's a display animal, leave them alone. I definitely think there is a place, like you said, even if it's just to make them relaxed when you're spot cleaning, so they're not trying to tag you or what have you. Like there is a place for handling them within reason that I think is truly beneficial for them. That's just been my
Or
experience.
like I said, get them exercise. Get them moving, get their body, muscles moving, and get their digestion system moving, stuff like that. I think it's like really essential, bro. Because I've noticed some of my green trees, bro. Like they've got some size on them, man. Like this one I've got, and I've been establishing for a while. It's like, man, like you got some size on you, dude. You need to like get out and move around or some shit, bro. Like
Yeah,
it's a
it's
trip.
it's amazing how small they make themselves look when they're
Yeah,
coiled up. Like my two mature ones, you can just tell they're big even when they're on the perch. But like,
yeah, yeah.
you can't tell how big until you get them
Yeah,
out, and
they're
you're just like,
long.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm 6'3", and my female, she's longer than I'm tall,
wow.
And I was just like, holy shit! I never would have
Yeah,
guessed that from looking at you on that
yeah, bro.
perch,
Yeah, it's
And
a trip.
it's funny.
Or
So
you get their
it's
shed and you stretch in the
yeah,
shed. It's like,
yeah, right.
what the hell, dude? It's like six
Yeah,
feet.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's like
you're like on the perch. You look like this, bro, and your shed is
yeah.
like it's hard to explain. Yeah, man, it's a trip, bro. But yeah, man, is I know there's like a lot of new people coming in and shit, and yeah, man. Um, that's why I try to bring up like things that I notice as a new guy coming in. Like the feeding thing. I've noticed that a lot. So if I'm noticing it, maybe it'll give people like, I've ran into that too, like, um happy the homie mentioned that, like, oh, that's a pretty cool trick, like I'll do that next time, or I'll just like stick to what I'm doing and it might work like it worked for him, just try to coming from like a buyer standpoint and shit. But yeah, man. So what you got going on over there? Like, are you doing any like food cycling, or you just, keeping it consistent? How often are you feeding and what size prey item? Let's get into some
Yeah,
technical stuff, man.
yeah, man. The food cycling, I haven't really done too much with that. Same with like the temperature cycling. Like, to your point, I feel like there's a lot of conflicting information regarding like the necessity of temperature drop at night or food cycling
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And like I said, I've had some awesome, more experienced people give me a lot of good advice and kind of like correct my limited understanding or incorrect understanding of things, you know. And it's definitely been something that I've tried to become more knowledgeable about. But like I said, that's the double-edged sword, I think, of the internet, because it's like you can find articles on both sides of anything telling you exactly the opposite thing is correct,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And so,
I mean, real
I
quick, if I could jump in, like, what I noticed is the animals know what's going on, bro. They know what season it is. They know what's going on, man. Like, I think they like cycle themselves to a point, bro. Like, they feel how warm it is in the room, how the daylight's running. And then, I've heard stories of like people that have cycled and she went at a certain time of the year, and then they didn't cycle and she went at the same exact time, even on the same exact day. So it's like, why am I even cycling if she's just gonna go on the same exact day? So I'm not trying to, I definitely think like cycling is important, and like I look forward to like, establishing a cycle in the future. But I think that they know what's going on at the same time.
I completely agree with you, Adrian. I think that, you know my curiosity with the green trees, because there are some people in the green trees that are, you know just giants, like they can
Yeah.
get anything, just like any species you work with. There's always the top guys, top girls, people that just have them figured out, they have them dialed in. And you know you talk to some of them and they're doing this and that, but then I found often, and you said it really well, but like some of the top guys are doing a lot less,
Yeah.
because like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
they understand the snake. They understand that snake has a pretty good grasp of temperature and daylight, like you
Yeah.
said, and their body has a natural clock that's going to set itself around what's going on. And I feel like sometimes we get too hung up on like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And like you said, sometimes I think we just have to kind of relax and be like, let the snake do its thing. Let it have that natural reset. If you go a little longer between feedings, or if you leave the lights on a little longer or a little shorter over a period of time, like that snake is going to reset itself. And unless you do something really drastic to it, like really mess up the temperatures or the humidity, or let something traumatic happen to it, it's usually going to be okay. Like the green trees, I think, are a lot hardier for the most part than I was initially thinking they were from what I'd read, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%, man. 100%. Try to get my phone charger right here. Yeah, man, and like, whatever works for that person in their geographical location, it might not work for you, the same exact way. So it's hard. Like I said, man, you could listen to as much as you want, but until you figure it out for yourself, that's when you really know, and you really learn, man. Like, I've got an adult pair right here. and they're not interested in doing anything with each other right now. I don't see, so I'm just gonna, like, maybe the female just isn't ready, like the female's not showing the male knows that, or they're just like not compatible. I'm not sure what it is. I'm gonna keep trying, keep trying this pairing, but I haven't had any luck with any locks or interest with this pairing so far. I had my previous pairing. I put them in, and they didn't want, they were just chilling. And then I switched the enclosures up. I put the male in the female's enclosure, and I upgraded the female to a bigger enclosure. Waited a little bit, fed them up, and then I put the male in the new upgraded enclosure with the female, and they locked up like right away. I don't know what it like. It was like a month later, and they
That's
just went
awesome.
at it. And yeah, it happened so quick, man. I got like 3 locks out of them, 3 or 4 locks, and then boom, she went off food, and then she got gravid, ovulated, and went gravid, and unfortunately passed away egg bound with 20 eggs.
No,
But
I'm sorry, man.
it's tough. I don't know. Like, everything was, the only thing I really didn't do was soak the female. Yeah, man, it's tough to say what went wrong. Like, maybe she was dehydrated. Um, yeah, man, it's tough. So I'm gonna try more in the future. Try to do more for the animal, and maybe it happens, bro. You hear it sometimes, and you think, oh, it'll never happen to me, and then it happened. But yeah, man, it sucked. She went in the nest box, and I thought she was gonna lay. She was all coiled up, and she started having contractions. Like she's about to lay, and then it didn't happen. She stopped having the contractions, and she kind of got out of the coil position a little bit, and that's when I should have took the red flag. I feel like, when they're in that coil position and they're having contractions, I think they're gonna go. Like, if they're gonna go, they're gonna go like really soon to that point. And that's just something to look out for. I've never really heard them having contractions. I listened to a lot of podcasts about, and so that's I had a show recently where I talked about my whole experience with that, and just try to shed some light on what I saw from a new keeper's perspective. Maybe because it's my first time, my first pairing, I noticed
Yeah,
like a lot more. I paid attention like a lot more to stuff, and just try to share what I learned, with that. But yeah, man, it happened quick, bro. And I'm trying the same male with a different female, and it's even a Biok too. The other female was a Biok, and this one's a Biok, and they're just not really. The female's just chilling there. It's more the male. He's just like keeps cruising around, like, dude, look no further. She's right there. But like I said, maybe he knows that she's not ready. She's not. I don't know what to say. She's not building. She's not building follicles right now. She's
right.
not developing. Maybe he knows that somehow, like through the sense. And then also, like you said, man, just keep it simple, bro. Don't overthink it. Like, I got I was doing puppy pads, and now I'm back to newspaper, bro. I got newspaper. I'm able to get newspaper, a lot of newspaper, access to a lot of newspaper. So I'll just, like Marshall Mendez uses, there's Buddy Buscemi uses newspaper. So it's like, you don't necessarily need like puppy pads or cocoa. You could, these guys are successful, experienced breeders, and they just use newspaper. So, I just lay it on thick there, whatever, butcher block paper, um, you know, and so I'm back to that. I'm just back to using newspaper. Um, yeah, man. So there's a whole like level of things, and yeah, like you said, just keep it simple. And yeah, when it happens, bro. There's not much you could do, but just do the best for the animals you can in the meantime, and keep trying.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, and real quick, like I said, this is not my advice. This is something I heard from somebody else, and it may be true, it may not, but I have heard that if you, for future reference, God forbid it happens again, if you have a female that's having trouble passing the eggs, if you
Yeah,
take her outside and put her on grass,
yeah,
supposedly that can, I mean, again, it's not foolproof, it doesn't work every time, but supposedly it can do something like you said when we were talking before, kind of like reset mentally, more natural scenario, it makes them move a little differently, and sometimes you can get lucky and they can pass that eggs that's stuck.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's a great tip, man. Like, it all happened so quick. It went from like she was having contractions and gonna lay to like 5 days later she was like egg bound and passed away. Like, happened quick.
yeah,
And that's a great tip you brought up though, Jared. Like I said, I didn't know what I was looking at. I had like shared, like I had a feeling like once she stopped and she got out of the position, I started sending pictures to people, and like they reassured me. Oh, it's I've had a female go 2 weeks in the nest box. I've had a female go a month in the nest box, and like, oh, she's gonna lay any day now, or something like that. And I'm just like, all right, well, fuck it. I mean, I guess there's not much I can do. But now looking back at what happened, like I would definitely try to like step in and just try to do something, because like if she's gonna go right there when she's coiled up, ready to go. If she switches positions and shit, I think that's a red flag. This is just stuff that you don't really hear about, bro. Like, because people aren't really like, I don't know. Felt like I've heard I don't want to say names. I've heard of people have egg bound scenarios and they share it, but you don't hear a lot of that. You only hear the good stuff. You don't hear a lot of the bad stuff, and that's what my podcast is about. Because I don't have any skin in the game, bro. I don't have any animals for sale. Um, you know, I haven't produced much. I'm just here sharing my experiences so maybe other people can learn. And it's stuff that I don't hear talked about. Like if I just talk about the same thing everyone else is talking about, then what are we going to learn here, bro? We need to talk about
100%.
new things. We need to talk about new shit. I know I'm a new guy. I don't know much, but like, like you can listen to as many podcasts as you want, but you're not going to know to go take the female out on the grass, like you just said, Jared. So this is why I bring it up. It hurts. It sucks, bro. I was devastated, man.
Oh yeah.
But that's why we need to like talk about it and just like, go forward, bro. I ain't with that gatekeeping shit. You know, I want to see everyone successful, and yeah, man, that's just where I'm at, bro.
No, man,
And
that's, and again,
I'm sorry,
Adrian,
what?
no, I don't mean to interrupt. I I have a ton of respect for anybody that can share their mistakes, that can share their things that didn't go right, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, myself included, um, there's an element of pride. There's an element of, like you said, I only want people to see me winning,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
even if I'm not a breeder, even if I'm just a keeper, I don't want it to be like, yeah, I snake died on me,
Yeah.
and it's like, I had no idea what happened. It's like, no, I totally know what happened. I screwed this up. I made a
Yeah.
mistake. And I'm not saying that was your case, but like for me, I've had snakes die,
Yeah.
and since I got back into it, and thankfully it's been, one or two as opposed to a lot, but it sucks. And you look back on it and you're like, shit, I did that wrong,
Yeah.
or I should have, like you said, I should have reached out sooner. I should
Yeah.
have asked for help from somebody that's been through this many
It's
times.
And it's
That
yeah, it's hard to see like from a picture. I'm just sending a picture, like not really any context. But like I said, your animals more than anyone else, bro. I knew that there was something fucked up, and it's hard to see from a picture, you know. And yeah, man. But um, and that was my only adult female, so it totally like it changed the whole game for me, bro. I'm like, damn, I just lost like a 20 egg clutch, and I lost my only adult female. Like, what the fuck am I gonna do now, bro? Like, so it was a tough one, bro. It was tough, and that's why like I would hate to see that happen to someone else, and that's why I talk about it. And um, I try to like shut up and breed. Like I agree with the shut up and breed thing, and I'm trying my best, bro. I'm like, let your work do the talking. I'm trying to fucking work, bro. Like I'm working, bro. So when I'm not, I don't have anything produced, I'm making cages. I'm sharing how to build your own fucking PVC enclosure, bro. Like you don't need to go spend 500, like, but it's, if you could find material and do it yourself, if you're handy, that's what I'm trying to be an inspiration, to be. You could have something that looks nice and build it yourself and, think outside the box type of thing, bro.
And Adrian, again, I hope I mean this, like, this is not me blowing smoke. Like, I love that. And I have the utmost respect for it because I think, it's very easy in reptiles, just like a lot of things, to get competitive, to get, like, I want to have an edge. I don't want to, and you, like you said, you see it with some of the people that are in the gatekeeping phase of it, where I don't want to let people in on my trade secrets, and I don't want to sound like I'm saying that about everybody, because I also think a lot of the successful guys and women that are doing it, like, I'm sure you get bombarded with 100 messages like,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
from somebody that has no interest in buying from you, that
Yeah.
hasn't built a relationship with you, that's just like, hey, help me, and it's like, no, I'm busy. I'm out here, like you said, I'm out here grinding. I'm out here doing my thing. I'm getting results. And I think it's, there's definitely a huge distinction between that and gatekeeping. But I think that, I'm a big believer in trying to be a force for good, and if I can help somebody else, like you said, avoid a stupid thing I did so they don't lose an animal, avoid an innocent mistake I made, that so they don't lose an animal, avoid,
Yeah.
the heartache of having to, like you said, assist feed and force an animal to eat because you're worried that it's not going to survive. Like, if I can save them that stress and save the animal that stress, I've always liked that expression, a rising tide lifts all boats, like, or all ships. And
Yep.
I think that green trees are very much a perfect example of that, because, for all the guys that are like, a Marshall Mendez, a Patrick Holmes, a Garrick from House of Blue, like Steven Saltzman, Bill Stegall, all those guys, Buddy Buscemi, who are hugely successful, very good at this. And a lot of them, I've talked to a number of them and benefited from their expertise and their help. But there is something to be said for mentoring the next people. There is something to be said for taking a partner with somebody, if they're willing, and you're respectful and appreciative of their time, to get that insight and save yourself, like you said, potentially years of heartache. Like,
Yeah.
I went to the trouble, I raised this female up, she's finally ready, and I did this one thing wrong because I didn't know better, not because I was being irresponsible or malicious, and I lost her. And now I'm, there goes 3-4 years, and now I'm
Yeah.
back at the square one. And I think that's been a really nice thing in my experience. Like I said, I can't speak for anybody else, but everybody I've had personal contact with in the green tree world has been extremely kind, extremely generous with their knowledge. I always try to be respectful and humble when I approach people, because I don't want to seem like I'm entitled. I don't want to seem like I expect anything from you. But, it's very much I've gotten a lot back from people, and I'm very grateful for that. And I hope I get to a point where I am a successful breeder and I can help the next guys up, like that,
Yeah.
like you and me, who are, we're in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You care about the animals. You want to do the right things. You want to get successful. You're not trying to just, make a quick buck or whatever, but you really, like, you love it. You love the animals. You love the process. And that's something that I think has been so cool for me with the community, that I've felt really invited in, rather than like, the dumb new guy who's just annoying them with my questions. So that's been really nice for me personally.
Yeah. There's a few points I like to touch on here, Jared. Is like when you are just like successful right off the bat, like say I did just get the clutch, it's like it all happened so easy. Like, what did I learn? When you're so successful, you can't really like speak on shit because you didn't really like you know, you could just get lucky. You know, like people say beginner's luck all the time. You know, they get lucky. Like who comes in and just buys a bunch of shit and is like successful at breeding, you know? But like, you know, you could get successful, but like, what do you really learn, you know, until you go through some shit? And then that's when shit hits the fan. And, um, yeah, man. You know, I had another point I wanted to bring up, but I gotta grab it out of my head. But yeah, man, chondros, dude. Chondros.
Yeah, man, it's a trip, you know. And I mean, like I said, I've been in it about as long as you know, and I've learned a ton. I wish I'd learned more in that time still. You know, you never feel like you know enough with them. And you know, like I said, every time you think you've got it
What
figured
up,
out, you
Jason?
think,
Thanks for tapping in, finally catching a live. Sorry, Jay.
and no, you're good, you're good. And you know, it's definitely one of those things where, you know, you talk to more people, you read more, and you sift through and you find out who and what are good sources,
Yeah.
who has replicatable procedures, you know,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
like you said, it's not just because you live in a place where the weather is just right, you
Yeah.
know, or you live in a place where your tap water is good enough for these things, you
Yeah.
know. it's
Yeah.
it's stuff where it's like they do this and this, and
Yeah.
this
Those are
person
great.
does this.
All great points, man.
So
Great
thank you.
points. And yeah, like this was the thing I was gonna touch on. Is like I'm not here for the money, bro. Like that's why I'm not here to like hold shit back. I'm just here to make cool animals, bro. Like all that other shit comes second, bro. Like that's why I don't like, you know, if someone else is successful, like because of, you know, something that I said on a podcast, great, man. I'm fucking that's what keeps me alive, dog. Like, you know, if I fucking die tomorrow, dude, like that was all worth it. You know, we're not gonna live forever, bro, and so, you know, we might as well just do the best we can while we're here, man. And yeah, man, like I said, I don't have any, you know, I have, you know, 5 other jobs that I'm doing, bro. This animal thing is therapy for me, bro. It's gotten me out of the streets. I'm right here. I'm in Los Angeles, but I'm sitting right here in the snake room talking to the homie from Indiana, bro, where I could be out in the streets doing whatever the fuck, dude, but I chose to be right here with my animals, man. And
I love that.
um but, you know, I've got no financial agenda and shit. I just want to make cool animals, bro, and especially a species that I love so much. And yeah, man, that's why I'm just, you know, you know, the experience was good for me. Now I know what's up, and you know, I'm refocusing the collection and just pretty much starting over, bro. Starting over, try again. There's always next season, and keep on keeping on, man. But you know, do you have a pairing like, you know, you have a pairing you're gonna start throwing together pretty soon?
You know, I that's and before I go into that, Adrian, I think, you know, again, your musings on the process, I think, are very profound, man. And I think that there's a lot of understated wisdom to it. You know, I if I can, you know,
Yeah,
be a bit cheesy and, you know, quote a song lyric. You know, I've always liked that line from, you know, Aerosmith's "Dream On." You know, you got to lose to know how to win. You know,
yeah,
and you learn a lot more from adversity, from failure, than you do from easy success. You know, and I think that, you know, like I said, unfortunately, the animals that I've lost taught me more than the ones that have been easy keepers. You
yeah,
know, because
for sure.
I found holes in my game. I found holes in my husbandry, and that was problematic. You know, like I said, both from an emotional and just a principle, like, you know, being successful at what you're trying to do standpoint. Like, I let the animal down. I failed, and I don't want to do that anymore. Not because I'm trying to, you know, oh God, these are so valuable, I need to make money. But it's like, no, man, I love these things. It's awesome. And I want
Yeah,
them to have good lives with me. You know, like when I found out these things can live to be 20, I was like, that's awesome. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like I'd love to have most of my animals live that long if I can, you know, and obviously it doesn't always work out that way, but if I can have an animal that has a good enough quality of life that it goes through a full natural life cycle like that, that's beautiful. But unfortunately, you learn to do better from when you fail. And like I said, I have the utmost respect for anybody with the humility to be open and honest about mistakes they've made, about things that went wrong, because I do think that you get a very sanitized presentation from a lot of people where it's like you're not seeing the losses, you're just seeing the big wins. And it's very important, I think, especially to help people like us, because the green trees are daunting. They have a bad rap, they have a heavy reputation, they have a steeper price tag if you're getting captive bred animals than a lot of snakes that you're getting into.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
the worth is there. I've always subscribed to that belief. Like, if you get wild caught animals, unless you get them from a very reputable source, okay, I spent $800 on this animal, but I'm going to add a couple zeros to that at the vet, or on, treatment for parasites, or, various other things. And captive bred, like I really have had a lot of success with that, and I've been very lucky with the people I've dealt with. Now I've also tried to do my due diligence and do my homework, but it is very much a thing where you get what you pay for, and then you get what you put in. I mean,
Yeah.
these people have done the hard work to produce captive bred animals like you and I are trying to do, and that there is a level of expertise that goes into that I'm happy to pay for, because you do, and especially when it's a good breeder who will give you support after the fact. Once you have the animal, and it's it's definitely something that I wholeheartedly subscribe to with the hobby. And but to get back to your second question, as far as pairings go, I have that one female. She's a long-term captive female Biak. That's the only one I'm positive is mature. If I were to pair her up, I have three males that I've been rolling around. I have a my fully adult male Maniquari, and I have a also an adult male Biak. That's if he's not of age, he's really close. He's huge. And then I have one of my personal favorite animals right over here. He's from Garrick, and he is very heavy Wamina blood off of Blue Moon, and he's awesome. And I'd really like to breed him, but I'm a little hesitant to put him in for the first one. So, but that's my favorite. That's my favorite locality. The animals I've seen from that, and I'd love to be able to get some purebred stuff, pure locality stuff of that. Eventually, I'd hope from Europe or some of the other places that still have it with some consistency.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you got a good eye, bro. You got a good eye, and you gotta post some more shit, bro. You gotta post some
Thank
more.
you. Thank you.
Post some more shit, dude. Because by looking at your page, it just looks like you got like 3 animals, bro.
Yeah. No, I've been slacking. I have young kids, and the summer I've been real slammed with just work, and they're out of school, and I was trying to spend every chance I could with them, and
Yeah.
it's obviously, like I said, I love the snakes, but your kids take precedence, and I have been lax in posting, and it's meant a lot to me that I've had several people reach out, like like you just said, and they're like, "Hey man, I like your stuff. Are you gonna post some more soon?" And I'm like, "Shit," like I've been lucky enough to develop even a small following and some very kind people that have shown an interest in what I'm doing. And I'd really like to post some more stuff now. And like I said, some of the animals I've kind of sat on because I was just trying to make sure they were in a good headspace. They were established. They were doing well, before I posted it. It was like, oh yeah, this animal had problems, and now I look like an idiot. So,
Got to give a shout out to Alex in the live chat real quick, man. He's been tapping in. I appreciate his participation. And yeah, man, definitely the new up and coming keepers, bro. Definitely got a good crew, man. yeah, it's I was in a few group chats and stuff, but I just had to like kind of take a step back because shit started to kind of pop off for me, and I was just trying to focus. I'm not like a big like texting person and like group chat person, and it's hard to keep up with all that. So it just kind of like it's just too much, and they be going on and like the text message thread is like paragraphs on. I'm just like, dude, I'm such a busy man, and so it's I just had to just focus on you know just shut up and breed, bro. And the best way, Eugene Bassett said it himself, the best way to kill a chondro or green tree python is to breed it. And he was right, bro. He's right, man. Eugene Bassett is a fucking true G. He's a really fucking OG, bro. Love that dude. And but yeah, man, not but like I said, bro, we're keeping it positive, bro. Animals are eating, bro. Animals are shedding. Animals are getting up to size, brother.
That's awesome. I mean,
And
that's
we gonna be there, bro.
I have no doubt, man. Like I said, you're doing all the right things, and it's definitely, you go through those stretches where again, we're growing. I mean, I was joking to my wife the other day. I'm like, my family, a couple generations back was farmers. And I was like, I guess I'm farming, man, because I got these snakes that I'm growing up,
Yeah,
and it's a funny feeling because you're like, all right, they're doing well. Like you said, they're hitting all their marks. They're eating, shitting, shedding, putting on size, putting on healthy weight. They're active. They're, healthy, healthy look to them. The OCC is going, everything's moving along, but I'm still like 2, 3 years out, and that's like, again, it's like they talk about with anything where you're successful. You only saw the big moments, but you didn't see everything that went on behind the scenes to get you to those moments, like
yeah,
the good husbandry day in day out, the good husbandry week in week out, month after month, year after year. And then, like you said, Eugene Bassett said, you get to that point where it's like, this is the big payoff, but it's also the biggest risk. It's like, it's gambling in a way. You're like, I'm all in. I'm putting it on the female. I'm putting it, and you don't hit every time, unfortunately. And when you don't, like you said, when you go through what you went through, it sucks. It's
yeah,
heartbreaking. And even if it's not my animal, like I said, because I like you and I care about the snakes, like, I'm heartbroken for you, man. I hate hearing that shit.
yeah.
And
Because
it's
if you look at it like, say I got the clutch, bro, it would be a completely different story, bro. Be like, damn, look at this fool, he's got a clutch, or whatever, like, and then it's like when it got close, but like it's like a whole nother. It's like, oh, look at that fool failed green tree python breeding. What a fucking noob. Or on the other hand, it's like, damn, homie, that fool got a clutch. Like, so I was coming up, dog, like out of the new breeder group and shit. Like, there's not many that have had clutches yet and shit. So I tried, and I'm just happy to say, like, I got that far, bro, and I learned that much. And the silver lining is I got to share it with all you guys. I know we've heard stories before, but it's just another wake up call, safety meeting, in the future. And I did a whole show about it. Don't mean to keep harping on this shit, but
not at all, man.
I already did a whole show about it, and so, but I didn't talk about like taking it on the grass or anything. But
Yeah,
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 man, I mean, I feel like an hour and a half went by pretty quick, bro. I'd definitely
yeah.
love to have you back someday, dude.
I'd be
It's
honored, man.
getting late for both of us, and we got some rain coming in over here on the west coast. Might be a good time to pair some shit up, bro. So,
Yeah, man.
um,
Hey, I'll be rooting for you, brother.
yeah, man. If there's any like closing statements you have, bro, like any announcements you want to make, or like let us know you're gonna post more and where do I can follow you. Um,
Yeah. Thank you. And again, Adrian, I just want to make sure I don't forget. Thank you for the opportunity, man. It means a lot that, I know you say you're small time, but like you're in a you're an established entity. I knew who you were before you reached out. I follow you, and it's really cool that people like you who have a platform, which, you say it's small, but I mean, like I said, you are a known entity, man, and I have respect for that. And you give other people the opportunity to get their face out there, when, there's no incentive for you to do that besides just being a good dude and loving the game. So I have a ton of respect for that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk and just,
Yeah.
have people listen to me ramble a little bit. But
Yeah.
as far as
That
yeah,
last comment Alex just dropped was very well said, man. He's saying, um, let me put it back up on the screen right here. People don't build the respect for the inexperienced. Real respect happens based on how people see you recover. Catch you guys later. It's been a pleasure hanging with you. And
that's awesome.
that's totally like relatable, bro, because you see the trap god himself, bro, MJ, he's been completely transparent with us, and that shit just didn't happen overnight for him. It took him almost like, years, bro. It took him like many years to go through and get experience, and now he's killing it with the success. And you have that much more respect for him, bro, because he wanted it that much and he kept trying, you know and that's basically right where I'm at, bro. And I know MJ's got our support, bro. We're both Trap Talk Patreon members, and um yeah, man. So like, that was a very well said comment, bro. Is if it just happens all quick overnight, it's like, damn, where'd this fool come from? But it's like, oh, like, what if I get my other clutch going, like, oh man, he really deserved that one, bro, after what he went through last time. So makes it all that much more sweet, bro. And knowing that
Absolutely.
I was here sharing it with all you guys, and but yeah, man, whatever else you got going, dude, let us know, and we'll wrap it up, brother, on that
All
note.
right. Hey,
Um,
like I said, it's been a pleasure, man. I talk to you anytime, and I will definitely be posting more, trying to keep people more in the loop on what I'm doing. Like I said,
yeah,
anybody who's kind enough to show any interest or drop a like means a lot. Like I said, I'm very new to this, and it's been really I've been touched by the engagement, from a lot of people that I thought were way out of the stratosphere that would even notice what I was doing. And like we said, from people like Garrick, people like MJ, uh, Bill, a lot of those guys, when they,
everyone, bro.
I've been very lucky that I've had a lot of big dogs be very kind to me, and build me up rather than shut the door in my face like
Yeah,
you
man.
very 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 easily could happen. And
Yeah, shout out to
so
the OGs. I talk to them all the time. Garrick, Bill, Marshall, Alex Warren, Buddy Buscemi. I talk to these guys all the time, bro. They're all super cool dudes, bro, and I have
just good dudes,
utmost
man.
respect for them, bro.
Yeah,
And
I
you know,
I agree.
it's it's just tough when you're a new guy and you're so eager, and you want to hear every side of the story, and it just doesn't work like that, bro. Like, whatever can go wrong has happened to me recently, bro. And that's, I ain't trying to make this show all about me. I'm just trying to, give the people, something to hear. And pretty much everything that could go wrong, it's happened to me, bro. And you know it's until you go through it and you know how to deal with it, that's when you learn, bro. You could hear, and you know listening to podcasts definitely do help, because you're like, oh, okay, I know what to do on that, so I'm gonna do that. Unfortunately it happened, but they're live animals, guys. These are living animals, bro. And what we can do is our best, bro. So Jared, thank you for hopping on, and coming on tonight with the short notice. And I was very, very pleased that you accepted the invite. So thank you so much, man. It
Thank you,
really
man.
made my night, bro, and made these 2 weeks, bro. So
Likewise, brother.
hey, you can hang out backstage, or if you want, and we could chop it up. And I'm gonna go ahead and thank you guys
Thank you, guys.
from the
Appreciate
West
your time.
Coast, bro. Sorry for the technical difficulties again in this episode, man. We'll get it cracking next episode. Episode 14 is a wrap, man. Appreciate all you guys for tapping in.
Thanks, guys.
Trying to end the show right here. Awesome. There we go. All right.